to excavate right here so that we can inlay our rosette ring right there. When you do the real thing, this is the same process. You do all your decoration and you don't cut out the sound hole until after all your inlay work is done. And then you'll use the same hole with the Dremel and you'll cut out all the way through the sound hole. That's on the next project. Now, a couple of considerations here that many students miss. Remember, we cut out our ring here. We have to move the Dremel. If we do the same thing over there, we're just cutting on two sides of the ring. We have to excavate where the ring is going to go. So I need to put the bit right there on the inside of my cut, and I need to put it on the outside right there. And then I'll have to do a couple of passes, looks like 3, to clean it all out to give a place for the ring. So first I'm going to set it up. That's why we cut so deep, or at least deeper into this, so that we could make the determination on how to set the bit. So I'm putting it on my pin. I'm adjusting it, and can you see in there? Turning the bit so that the cutter is touching right where I want it to. I want to be pretty precision here. That looks pretty good right there. Okay, now we got to adjust the depth. Remember, before we're cutting through, now we got to do it exactly the same depth. So I'm going to release this by turning those balls. It releases the. I'm going to set it on top of the veneer and then plunge it down until it hits the board, and then lock the base in. So there's just a little bit protruding, hopefully the same as the thickness of the veneer. I'm not going to trust it though. I'm going to do a little sample. So I'm going to cut some out here and then check it. That little rabbit put in there. And thickness I check by feel. And I want to be right on. Feels to me like I'm a little bit too deep. So I want to bring it up some. Okay, now this is how I adjust it micro. I do a micro adjustment. So you remember our adjustment pin here. I'm going to adjust the pin until it's touching that block. And you're looking right, I turn that off, looking right there. So I'm adjusting it down until it touches. Now it's touching. So I'm going to release the base, and then I'm going to advance that up a little bit. No, wait, I got to do the other. Yeah, I'm too deep, so I got to make it shallower. So I'm going to release the base, and I'll advance that maybe 1/8 of a turn, and then bring the base back up. So then my 1/8, that's all it's going to take. And I'm going to replunge and test it again. Oh yeah. It's worth every minute you spend to get this thing just right. You're going to do a lot of work excavating, and if it's too high, you risk sanding it off completely when you go to make things flush. If you make it too deep, you have to do a lot of sanding around it to bring it flush. So just spend the time and make it just right. Okay, so now my distance is set, my depth is set. Now I'm ready to cut the ring. Now I've done one pass, but I know I'm not where I should be. As you remove material, it tends to clog up inside there and slide underneath the base and lift it so you don't get the depth you need. So I'm going to need to take a couple of passes, and you see all this dust that in feathers, wood feathers here that I got to clean up before I take a second pass. I've got to make sure my depth is nice and consistent all the way around. Blowing out all the crumbs. Okay, I'm ready to go again. Second pass now. Okay. So I just cut this one. Now I'm going to go and cut this one. So I have to readjust my trammel to the right distance, and I do that once again visually. Put it there, unlock it, and then adjust. That light in there is really helpful to see. The edge. And I'm going to go about there. Lock it in. Transfer the pin. Lift. Plunge. My first pass, clean off all the burrs. You may be tempted not to do this, but that'll cause lots of problems later on. I've got to make sure that base is sitting nice and flat. Second pass. Okay, there's my outer ring. I don't think that's the wrong one. So I'm hoping this is going to fit. It looks like it will, but you never really know until you excavate everything and then try to fit it. So now I'm going to reset. I'm going to cut out that. Cut out that, and I'll probably take a third pass yet to clean all of this out. The setting for this one doesn't have to be near as precise. I'm just removing material now. All right, I'm going to move it in, cut another swath. Much easier to keep clean now that a lot of that's gone. Now I'm going to remove, hopefully, the last pass. It's all been removed. Now, the last thing is to check the fit. Not too shabby. I want to clean up some of the burrs. Uh-oh, I don't know if I can get it out now. Just cleaning up some of the burrs on the end of this rosette ring with some sandpaper so that it goes in a little bit easier. Nice and delicate. This thing is very fragile and I don't want to break it. And snaps in really quite nice. Now, it's not always that nice and not always that easy. In fact, I might have gone a little bit large. I do see some gaposis there. So let's talk about this. If you go to put it in and your excavation is too small, well, what do? You adjust your trammel and make it a little bit bigger, either on the inside or the outside, depending on what you need. If your excavation is too big, you go, doggone it, and you have to figure out a way to make it look better. Probably the easiest way is just add something to your rosette. So, for example, I can add a rosette stick like it did on the sample, and where my gap is, right, I can add this black band, and that would look nice. Or, if you don't want to do that, then you have to remake another ring so that it fits properly. Let's glue our ring in. I'm going to remove the trammel pin. Those get lost really easy. We make sure to keep track of that and put it back where in its home. Now I'm going to use yellow glue, which is a pretty fast operation. If you need a little more time to work this through, then use hide glue, that's the brown bottle, and it'll give you about 30 minutes of work time. This gives you about 5 minutes. So do which one you feel more comfortable with. Spread it. And we've got to cover that whole area, and also, or especially, into the corners. I want to make sure there's glue covering all of it, and there's glue in the corners. So notice how I kind of go back and forth so that I get it. That looks good. I can feel it pop right in there. Make sure it's flush. Caul, C-A-U-L. This is called melamine. It's got a white plastic on it, so it doesn't stick. If you don't have one of these, then use another board, something flat with tape on it. Packaging tape. I'm going to put 3 clamps on it. Nice and snug. it's got to sit for at least 15 minutes. And then I can pull the clamps off if you're using yellow glue. If you're using hide glue, it's got to sit for at least 30 minutes, and longer times, like an hour, would be beneficial. Removing the caul can happen in 15 minutes, but then let the glue dry, and it'll take a little bit longer than that 15 minutes for it to dry once the caul has been removed. Like another 15 minutes after that or so. If it sits overnight or something, it's all going to be dried up. Okay, let's go ahead and flush this up. I'm going to put it into a vise to hold it. I could clamp it to the table also, that would work. This is easy. Now this is pretty delicate, and I've done a good job of keeping it nice and flush. It's not going to take much to get it cleaned off. I'm going to use a sanding block, a flat block, and this is 150 grit paper, which will work just fine. The nice thing about a sanding block is you're removing very little material, and so I can control better how much I'm removing. And I don't want to remove much, I just want to get it clean. I don't want to burn through that veneer. Going across the grain is more aggressive than going with the grain. I think it's going to do the job right there. Now I'm going to go with the grain. And there we have a rosette ring. If you can do it here, you can do it on the real deal.